Mad King gave his enemies the justice he thought they deserved, and each time it made him feel powerful and right. Until the very end.
Hey everybody, welcome to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Before we get started, big spoiler warnings for Season 8, Episode 5 of Game of Thrones are ahead. Well, Daenerys made what they call in wrestling a hard heel turn during last night's conquest of King's Landing. A lot of fans are divided about this move because for a lot of us fans of Daenerys, the turn seemed to come out of nowhere. But unlike Arya killing the Night King, this story result came straight from George R.R. Martin. So we can look back into the history of the show and books and find multiple hints that this was going to happen. And when you add all of them up, you realize we really should have all seen this coming. Before we get started, if you're new here, please subscribe and let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. First, let's go through a little background of Daenerys that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Her father, the Mad King Aerys II, was a cruel leader. He loved to burn people alive, including Ned Stark's father and brother. The reason Jaime Lannister ultimately became the Kingslayer was because the Mad King was going to destroy King's Landing with caches of wildfire he had hidden all around the city. The Targaryens are often either cruel, like Aerys or Viserys, or kind, like Rhaegar and Aemon.
Every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin.
So the question all through the series has been, where would Daenerys' coin toss land? So let's go back to Season 1. After the episode, Dave and Dan talked about when she saw her brother Viserys killed, and how that didn't seem to affect her, like this was a way to foreshadow her cruelty to come. But this brother had always been really mean to her. He sold her into slavery, essentially.
I would let his whole tribe you. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that's what it took.
So we understand why she was happy to see him go. But consider her mistake with the witch Miri in Season 1. She ordered the Dothraki not to rape her and instead took her under her own protection. Afterwards, of course, Miri betrayed her and killed her husband. So Daenerys learned the danger of showing mercy to a conquered people. When Miri tells her that her son Rhaego would have been the call of calls, the stallion who mounts the world, Daenerys isn't horrified that she could mother such a destructive creature. She's angry at Miri for taking away her son. In Season 2, outside Koth, she delivers these lines.
When my dragons are grown, we will lay waste to armies and burn cities to the ground.
And later she says,
and I will take what is mine. With fire and blood, I will take it.
Now, you have to ask yourself, why does Daenerys want to rule? Later, her conquests become about liberating slaves, but early on, her core reason was for herself. She wanted the throne for her and for her family. Her reasons don't become altruistic until a few seasons later. At the end of Season 2, she has a vision in the House of the Undying. The throne room in the Red Keep has been burned away and it's filling up with snow. Before Daenerys can touch the Iron Throne, she hears her dragons calling for her. This has always been interpreted as her abandoning the throne, being called away to fight the Night King. But now, in hindsight, the snow could be ashes. She almost wins the throne, but instead listens to the darker part of her nature, the dragon living inside her blood. After liberating slave cities, she crucifies the former masters in retribution for the slave children that they killed. She says,
I will answer injustice with justice.
In these seasons, she becomes frustrated as occupying cities is much harder than conquering them. All through her rule, she wants to make examples of people. Daenerys is always going immediately for the death penalty. When a freed slave disobeys her and kills the son of the Harpy, she immediately orders him executed. No life in prison, execution. Also, Daenerys actually enjoys burning people alive, which is a horrible, nightmarish thing to witness. People who have seen this in real life say that the smell haunts you for years. Yet, this is Daenerys' preferred method of execution. And we loved it when she was burning slave owners, but later when she kills the Tarleys, it seems extreme. And Varys' death seems downright cruel, given that she'd known him for a while and he'd served her faithfully up until then. This joy in burning others comes straight from her father, and really should have been an early warning sign. But there's other symbolism that pointed to this result. Her 3 dragons are named after 3 important men in her life, her brothers Rhaegar and Viserys, and her late husband called Drogo. There is significance to these names and what they represent to Daenerys. Viserion, named after a guy who was a total jerk, was turned evil by the Night King. It makes sense that this would be the dragon to turn on Daenerys. Jon's father, Rhaegar, is the namesake of Rhaegal. Rhaegar is said to have been kind and gentle.
We like to walk among the people. We like to sing to them.
When Rhaegal dies, it's symbolic that this part of Daenerys has died as well. Now, her last dragon is Drogon, named after Khal Drogo, the fierce Dothraki known for raping, pillaging, and destruction. Daenerys struggled for several seasons to get her dragons under control, even locking 2 of them away in a marine crypt. This symbolized that Daenerys was struggling to contain the chaos of Meereen, and also the rage within herself. She's always wanted to prove that she was better than the world she came from.
I'm not my father.
Aerys' legacy haunts her for her entire life.
She's not her father.
And her past experience as a ruler didn't prepare her for Westeros. And when she conquers the slave cities, she's immediately loved by the people she liberates. She grew used to being adored by the populace. In fact, she didn't even have to fight to take these slave cities. The people rose up against their masters. In episode 5 of season 8, she resents the people of Westeros for not doing the same.
The people who live there, they're not your enemies. They're innocents, like the ones you liberated in Marine.
In Marine, the slaves turned on the masters and liberated the city themselves the moment I arrived.
And you could see the seeds of this resentment sown throughout the entire series.
They can live in my new world, or they can die in their old one.
She even tells Jon directly,
I saw them gathered around you. I saw the way they looked at you. I know that look. So many people have looked at me that way, but never here. Never on this side of the sea.
that sounds familiar.
And no one has ever given me what they gave to her in that tent. Never.
Daenerys' decision is also rooted in her life experience. Every time she conquered a city, she had people around her to caution restraint.
I am not here to be Queen of the Ashes.
And this restraint has always proved incorrect. When the Dothraki took her, she tried to reason with them, and they made her into a slave. She conquered the Khalasar by burning the Khals. In Marine, she tried to govern fairly and respect the city's customs. All that won her was an insurgency. She finally defeated the slavers with her dragons.
Dracarys.
Gradually, she's come around to the thinking of Daario Naharis.
All rulers are either butchers or meat.
Tyrion wanted to lay siege to King's Landing and gather great houses to her cause. All of her major allies fell in a couple of episodes. The Lannisters were finally brought to heel by Dragonfire. Daenerys learned a valuable lesson over the years. Mercy is for the weak. The world has to burn before it can be purified. In the end, she followed Lady Olenna's advice.
You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
One of the big questions after this episode was, why did Dany think this was a good idea? There's no way she can rule a kingdom that she's destroyed. Well, in that moment, she wasn't thinking. She was angry. Anger is the absence of thought. It's when you just want to hurt and destroy everything around you. During the destruction of King's Landing, there are several green explosions around the city. These are the caches of wildfire hidden by her father. Their activation is another metaphor, that the Targaryen rage buried in her blood that she's so long struggled to control has finally been unleashed. In an earlier season, Tyrion spoke to her about a measured conquest, getting the Westerosi houses to join her. She answered by saying,
Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Stark, Tyrell. They're all just spokes on a wheel. This one's on top, then that one's on top, and on it spins, crushing those on the ground. I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
And yet, she doesn't break the wheel. She becomes the wheel. The Targaryen symbol even looks like a large, flaming wheel, destroying everything it rolls over. And just so I'm clear, this sucks. We love Daenerys. A lot of people have named their kids after Daenerys. And like the people who serve her, we wanted her to be more. A monarch like Aragorn, who understands that she is unworthy of ultimate power. But this isn't a traditional fantasy story, it's Game of Thrones. Daenerys' fall is nothing to celebrate. It's tragic, but we shouldn't pretend like we didn't see it coming. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Again, if you're new here, please subscribe. And don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of last night's episode. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.